Thank you for joining us. My name is Tyler Watson. I'm the Executive Vice President of Marketing here at The Atlantic. In this session, we'll explore how groundbreaking research is showing us about extending our lifespan. We'll consider how everything from legislation to healthcare systems can improve access, outcomes, and quality of life. We'll then round out our discussion by celebrating why age is just a number when it comes to pursuing new opportunities for purpose, creativity, and authentic self-expression. We'd like to thank our underwriter, Centerwell, for supporting The Atlantic's journalism. If you hear something today that particularly resonates with you, please use the hashtag TAF25. Otherwise, please silence your cell phones. Welcome to the future of aging.
Here to discuss Aging Reimagined, exploring the new frontiers of a well-lived life. Please welcome Courtney Boen, Assistant Professor of Sociology at Brown University. Michael Roizen, author, Chief Wellness Officer Emeritus, and founding chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. With Ross Andersen, staff writer at The Atlantic.
All right, welcome everyone. I'm gonna jump right in. Courtney, let's start with you. I have found in adulthood that I'm sort of besieged with reminders that I am aging. Most recently when I was asked to moderate this panel. I found myself in familiarizing myself with your work sort of consoled, because it sounds like middle age is actually the time where we start sort of making the interventions that can help us live longer.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's great. So I hate to break it to you, but we are aging. All of us in the room are.
Yeah.
Age isn't just about the sort of celebration of birthdays or the passage of chronological time, but it's a physiological and biological process. And when we think about how we can intervene to extend longevity and healthy aging, we have to think about the midlife period, and I think about this for two reasons. The first is that the experiences, exposures that we have, the behaviors that we develop earlier in our life course are gonna set us up for how we live our later years, and whether we make it to those years at all, right? I'm also thinking about this from a population perspective, and when I think about US life expectancy, which is in a comparative perspective, pretty abysmal. The US lags behind many of our peer countries. The key reason why this is the case is that we in the United States have tremendous amounts of mortality and early death in the midlife period. And so when it comes to thinking about extending longevity on a population level and intervening on inequalities in longevity, the midlife period is really the time where we would see the most sort of return on that investment.
Well, let's talk about some of the specific things that we can do. Michael, I know that you spearheaded this extraordinary program at the Cleveland Clinic, where you actually paid people to engage in certain behaviors that would help them live longer. What were some of those behaviors?
Well, everyone knows the correct behaviors, and what we did was get the data from the Chicago retirement cohorts. In Chicago, after World War II, the water company, the gas company, and the electric company, which were public utilities at that time, followed all the people till they died, volunteered. And it turned out if you got to what we call 6+2 normals, normal blood pressure, LDL cholesterol, fasting blood sugar, weight for height, no cotinine, tobacco end products in the urine, manage stress, and then saw a primary care practitioner once a year and immunizations up to date, you live 30% longer after age 65. So we said, let's do that because our costs were increasing, and our CEO said, keep paying people more until they choose those behaviors. So the Cleveland Clinic is as you know, if you will, a not-for-profit, but we have a capitalistic bent in that we decided to pay we had 101,000 employees and dependents, and we started at $100. We wasted $4 million the first year. When we got over $600, even the cardiac surgeons' spouses got the cardiac surgeons to start to get healthy. And in fact, 45% of our employees now get to 6+2 normals. It saves us $190 million a year compared to both our trend line. It's 38% reduction. We save about $6,900 per person. We pay them back $1,600 now. That's the maximum allowed by law, a little more than that. And we save net is $4,900. The employees get $1,600. And in fact, it saved us since we've done it for the 101,000, a little over $1.5 billion.
Wow.
So it's been on average about 50% of our margin, which we reinvest obviously in new technologies and other things for patients.
Talk about the individual patients, not by name, but like what was most difficult for people to do?
Well, the most difficult is one of the things that I'm going to relate to Gayle King's best friend. So Gayle King's best friend in, I think it was 1997 or 8, said, you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car. So weight management was the toughest, and it still has gotten much easier lately. That is, in 2004, we started in executive health saying, you get a statin, and you get a statin, and you get a statin, because the reduction in mortality is so great from that overall. Now it is, you get a statin and a GLP-1, you get a statin and a GLP-1, you get a statin and a GLP-1. So it is, in fact, that's how we have advanced incredibly quickly. So the life expectancy of the US in the coast has stayed low, has stayed high, meaning much greater than the middle of the country. The middle of the country, because of obesity and drugs, has declined. But the obesity part, we're about to get a 4-year jump in life expectancy overall in that part of the country because of the GLP-1s and their major effect in obesity and the complications of obesity.
How quickly will that show up in the statistics?
I think probably within 3 years.
Wow.
I mean, it is. So a lot of the United States' decline in life expectancy compared to the other countries has been because of both drugs and obesity. And it seems like at least one of those problems, especially if we get the most favored nation treatment for the GLP-1s, will come down, will eliminate the obesity quickly, the obesity penalty.
Courtney, I was surprised to learn that stress reduction is so important to longevity. Is it right to think of it as being just as important as eating right and exercising and all those kind of normal food pyramid type things?
I'd venture to say that it's more important than those things. Stress is sort of this nebulous, broad concept that all of us think we understand because we all experience it. But it's also a physiological and biological process. Right? And so, I was thinking about this week. I was getting ready to travel to New York. I was finishing up a lab meeting with a team of research assistants. I was heading to teach a course, and my phone buzzed, and it was the school nurse. Right? Every one of us can sort of sense the tension, the working parents in the room of like, oh no. Yeah. What am I going to do here? And we can sense that because it's a physiological response to something that our brain perceives as overwhelming or threatening, right? And so in response to a perceived stressor, our sympathetic nerve system, the HPA axis, respond by secreting hormones to upregulate physiological functioning across our bodily systems, right? And we can feel this. Our heart rate increases, we experience inflammation, our respiratory rate increases, right? And so the key distinction, though, is that some stressors are manageable, right? We have the resources to deal with them, and we can reframe them, we can practice meditation, we can do all of these sort of individualized things to bring our body back down to its normal operating state. But the thing that I worry the most about, and what haunts me sort of as a population health researcher, is that imagine, though, those stressors that we cannot manage for which there is just not a good solution. The stress of working multiple low-wage jobs and still not being able to afford rent at the end of the month. The stress of relying on Medicaid and having those benefits under attack. Those are stressors that over time, our body does not de-escalate, right? When we're faced with chronic and repeated threats over time, we are in a heightened state of physiological stress, and that erodes the body's systems, right? And when we think about aging as a physiological process then, what it does is accelerate the aging process, right? So that, I'm showing all my cards here, I'm 41, right? But if you looked at my physiology and my biology, it may tell a very different story about where I lie on an aging trajectory, right? And part of a huge key feature that shapes that trajectory is how much stress we are under.
Let me just add to
Please.
that. At the University of Chicago, when I was there in running executive health as well as anesthesia, I got to care for 7 Nobel Prize winners at the same time, and one of which was Gary Becker, who did the net present value of investments. And Courtney is exactly right. With him, we did the net present value of your health changes. So smoking a pack a day is about an 8-year aging event. Doing the maximum amount of appropriate physical activity, the minimum for maximum benefit, is about a 9-year benefit. Food choices, portion size, and timing can be 27 years from the worst to the best. But stress is a 32-year aging event. And the joy of it is, though, stress management, and there are 3 keys in it. Courtney already alluded to them, but helps you lower that to 2 years, meaning you get a 30-year benefit from stress management. It's 3 Ps: posse, purpose, and play. So your posse, your friends, are key in helping you manage even the toughest of stresses.
Yeah, and well, to that point, I was also surprised to learn that just had the role that personal relationships play in this, and they're described sort of neutrally in the literature, and it kind of made me wonder, like, what if you're in a bad relationship?
I'm going to go. So one of the crazinesses is, I'm going to just take a little bit on this because we did
Do you have experience?
It's both bad and good relationships, right? But anyway, women get virtually no benefit from even a good marriage till after age 50. Men get a benefit from a good or bad marriage all the time. And so that's
true. That is true.
I'm driven by data, and that's the data. So after age 50, women and men both get a sizable benefit from that marriage, if you will.
Is that because men just are so much better after 50, or?
We don't know the mechanism of why it's. There are a lot of postulates, but no one knows for sure.
Someone should do some work on that. Courtney, we've been talking a lot about like individual choices and lifestyle changes, but I know from reading my Courtney Boen that this is a social problem too. And so what are the kind of larger systemic changes that we can do at kind of the level of politics and culture in order to live longer?
Yeah, and so, part of this is informed by thinking about, in ways that Michael, I think, suggests here, what do we know, what does the science of aging tell us about the features of life that are most stressful and toxic to us? So, I did a study a couple of years ago where I looked at the biological aging profiles of a nationally representative sample of midlife to older adults. And one thing that I found as part of that study was when we compared Black and white midlife and older adults of the same chronological age, Black adults experienced aging rates that were accelerated by about 9 years relative to their white counterparts. That is not natural. That is not inevitable. That is socially determined and structured, right? And when my team and I investigated what were the primary drivers of some of those gaps, there were several that came to mind that really stood out as extremely prominent. exposure across the life course to financial hardship and poverty and wealth deprivation, which is, again, politically determined, right? When we think about Black older adults living now, in their childhood years, there were laws and policies excluding their families from the mechanisms of wealth accumulation, right? And from stable employment and higher education, right? Stress also mattered, the stress of discrimination, the stress of managing financial hardship, right? And so I use those to inform my thinking about how can we build in the United States a system where aging is not a privilege of the wealthy or the powerful, right? But something that all of us deserve, that we want all of us to live long and healthy lives, right? And so, that thinking has really informed my own logic about how can we make, how can we reduce the stress and strain of financial hardship? Many of us experience across our lifespan, but can we put in place strong social safety nets that catch us when we fall, that give us material resources like food assistance or cash assistance when we become unemployed or disabled? Can we think structurally about those sorts of social safety net policies? But the other thing that I think, as you sort of said, hinted towards culture and politics that I'm thinking a lot about recently is just the social narratives that currently exist make many groups in the United States feel under attack and under threat, and for good reason, right? So when I think about sort of the politics right now that is virulently often anti-immigrant, for example, criminalizing of some groups, taking away the rights of those groups, that in and of itself is a social stressor that we know has health impacts, right? So in some of the work that I've done, for example, I've showed that even if you live in a county that experiences heightened immigration enforcement, even if you're a legal citizen of the United States and Latino, you experience accelerated aging through inflammatory stress-mediated processes, right? And so what does that then tell us about what we need to live healthy and long lives? It tells us that both the social safety net and getting our material needs are incredibly important, and living culturally and politically in an environment that feels like people care for us and about us also really matters.
Michael, I want to ask you just about the upper limit of longevity. Often we see news stories about one billionaire or another plunking down tens, hundreds of millions of dollars into sort of longevity startups in the biotech space. And I look at that and I wonder, is this just vain? Are they wasting their money, or do you think people will someday live to 150, 200 years old?
In 1998, when we wrote the Real Age book, we said 60 could be the new 40 because you can change, we didn't know the mechanism then, but you can change your epigenes to change which of your genes are on. At least 90% of our genes we control. And that means that 60, you can function now at age 60 as the average person functions at age 40. We now believe, with at least an 80% probability, that within 10 years, 90 will be the new 40. Why is that? Well, when the Human Genome Project started in 1991, $3 billion over 10 years to understand the human genome. It is an exponential change. It's now $40 in 6 hours. That's an 8,000-fold reduction in the cost of doing science, which has allowed us to look at the mechanism of aging. And there are 14 shots on goal, 14 mechanisms of aging that have transformed at least 2 animal species from the human age 90 to the human age 40. What that means, and those are now moving into human trials, so we're beginning to see what we call xenorejuvenators. That is, when you have a cell that gets old, it causes other cells around it to get old, just like a piece of rotten fruit causes others. But there's a small molecule that now takes that and makes it a young cell again. Similarly, we've had the hope of stem cells and of editing out. And Jennifer Duda was here, I guess, yesterday. It cost $1.2 million to cure sickle cell disease up till now. Well, her project cost $20,000 to do the same thing. Huge advance in the last 2 years. And we're also seeing getting rid of old proteins that cause missignaling. So there are, and there are others, epigenetic reprogramming, et cetera, 14 of them. And so within 5 years, we'll know whether the human aging really is 120 the way it's been, or whether we're going to get to live 30 years longer relatively easily. So stay tuned. All of you stay alive for the next 5 years at least.
I want to close with a question about the culture of aging. You know, it's funny, you read like our oldest stories, you look back at the Epic of Gilgamesh, and what are people preoccupied with? It's like mortality and decline. And that makes me think that really there's never going to be a kind of period when the majority of the population is like super zen about getting older. And so I wanted to first get your thoughts on that, but also wonder if you see any kind of positive examples out in our culture of people who both have achieved longevity but also have aged gracefully.
Great, it's a great question. You know, when I think about sort of the discourse around aging and it's a long history, but sort of where it is now, where I'd also like it to go and where I would hope it goes in the future is that it's also an inclusive one, right? Where the discourse is oriented not just to sort of keeping us living longer, but for many groups in the United States and globally, the expectation of life is quite short, right? And so, you know, when I think about where it needs to go or where it's headed, I think a lot about, you know, some of the inequalities that we see in aging and what we can do simultaneously while thinking about extending life for people, you know, that have sort of access to cutting edge resources, but also what we can do for those folks for whom, you know, there's a 50% survival rate of making it to 65, you know, and so that's something that I really think about. When, your question about who do you see as living successful, like what's a model of successful aging? I'm lucky that I live in a family that there's many of them. One that comes to mind, my grandfather passed away when he was in his early 90s, and he looked great, and he used to say, you know, the bad thing about looking great is people expect you to feel great, but he stayed connected his whole life, right? I mean, he had 9 kids, and just derived so much social meaning from those relationships that to me is sort of the pinnacle of what successful aging looks like.
That's lovely. Tough act to follow,
I have
Michael.
2 people. One is my co-author on the book, The Great Age Reboot, who's 97, still functioning. He was CEO of a company. In fact, they redid Barclays Place. He owned the Nets in order to redo Barclays Place and redevelop Stapleton. So he's done a lot of things for low-cost housing, if you will, Albert Ratner. And still at now 97, he talks to Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, virtually daily, trying to get him to do better things for the state, which he does. And the second person is Norman Lear. So Norman Lear enveloped all of us with humor and was still working, I think, at age 101 when he passed on. So Norman Lear is the value, if you will, of the cultural value of aging, contributing, both of them contributing to society in their late 90s and 100s.
I love that. I didn't think we were going to get to Norman Lear. Courtney, Michael, thanks for being with us today. That was great. Thank you.
Still to come on the Future of Aging stage, Gayle King and Julianne Moore. For a conversation produced by our underwriter, Centerwell, about how to age well in America, please welcome Sanjay Shetty, President of Centerwell at Humana, with Candace Montgomery, Executive Vice President of Atlantic Live.
Good afternoon, everyone. So Dr. Shetty, let's jump right in.
Yeah.
Let's start with the big picture. What do you think is fundamentally missing from how our health system supports people as they age?
Short answer, so much. There is so much broken with the system as it exists. If I'm starting out, the most fundamental problem is that our healthcare system is designed to treat illness. We are woefully under-resourced when it comes to actually managing preventive, proactive, holistic care. I'd say the other big problem is it's incredibly fragmented. It's over-complex. If any of you have had family members who've had to navigate the system, I'm a physician and I've had to navigate it for my own parents, it is incredibly difficult to navigate as a patient. But this is a thing we have to figure out. As we all know, seniors represent a huge and quickly growing segment of the population, expected to be 80 million people by 2050. And they're a different kind of person. If we look at their medical conditions, 93% of seniors have one or more chronic conditions. 79 have two or more chronic conditions. So it's absolutely vital that we figure this out. But if we go a little deeper, we spent some time recently trying to get to know our patients a little bit better. We recently published the CenterWell Aging Well in America survey. And we learned a lot of really interesting things. I'd say one of the insights that I really appreciated was when we asked Americans, 2/3 of Americans said they would prefer independence to living longer, but being dependent on someone else. And that percentage increased to 78% when we asked seniors. Independence is so important to the people that we're serving. And obviously I'm a doctor, so I orient to physical health, but obviously the worries on people's minds were much broader than that. People are worried about financial insecurity, mental health, loneliness and isolation. So the needs of the population that we're serving are much broader. And so I'll just back up. I'll tell you a little bit about CenterWell. We have the honor of sponsoring this session today. We're probably a little bigger than you realize. CenterWell is the care delivery organization at Humana. It includes CenterWell Senior Primary Care, which is about 330 senior-focused clinics operating in 15 states. We have CenterWell Home Health, one of the leading home health agencies in the country, operating in 37 states, and CenterWell Pharmacy, a home delivery pharmacy and specialty pharmacy. And I would say all of what I just described to you, everything that I think is broken, is really what has informed what we're trying to do different at CenterWell. We are very much leaning into this idea of normalizing proactive and preventative care. We want to ensure that our patients have the time with our providers to learn about their health and to engage. We want to make sure that we're addressing all of the other barriers that are in their life, these socioeconomic, language, cultural barriers that's allowing them to achieve their best health. And so that's the model that we're really leaning into. So lots to fix, but we're excited to try to be part of the solution.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. When we talk about aging well, can you reflect on what it really encompasses and how factors beyond physical health shape fulfillment later in life, as you were saying a few minutes ago?
Well, one really important thing is, aging well doesn't mean just living longer, right? It means that those later years have to be full of fulfillment and sort of lived on your own terms. And so we actually wanted to learn more about that. So we are working now on what we're going to publish in a few months, which is the CenterWell Index on Fulfillment. And it's trying to get at the heart of what it is our patients really want. And in some ways it's insightful, in other ways it's not surprising at all. I'll tell you a little bit about it. At the top of the tier of what makes a senior feel fulfilled are two important things. One is that feeling of being comfortably secure. They want stability, they want peace of mind. The other one is they want a sense of purpose, right? They need to have meaningful role or goals or contributions. That's at the top. Below that are the ways that they approach life. So what drives fulfillment? It's sort of your sources of strength, whether it's optimism or gratitude or spirituality. And it's only below that that you see sort of the rest of what informs being fulfilled. It's financial security, it's social connectivity, emotional intimacy, validation, and physical health. So it is a pretty broad set of items. And a couple of interesting things fell out of that. One was there's actually a dip in fulfillment at the ages of 66 and 67. Lots of reasons. We were trying to dig into that on the why, but you can start to hypothesize the reason, right? Those folks are coming out of the workforce and now trying to figure out what to do in this new thing called being a senior. After that, fulfillment continues to increase. And so we just see this dip that we're trying to sort of figure out. How can we help support people through that dip? The other thing is it kind of points again at where the medical system is kind of failing us, right? A patient can be going to multiple doctors across many different settings, and nowhere they're getting that advice. How do I find my independence? How do I attach to resources that could help me through this? So yet another way that I think we have to do better as a healthcare system.
You've spoken before about the need for a more integrated, team-based approach to care. What does that look like in practice, and how do we change that experience for older adults?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, it was actually just published in the Journal of Multidisciplinary Healthcare, a really good systematic review that talked about the power of interdisciplinary team-based care. What that means is people from different disciplines getting together to really think differently about how we care for a patient. It's something that we do at CenterWell Senior Primary Care. So while we obviously have our doctors and our nurse practitioners, every one of our patients also has access to a community health worker who can visit them at home, a pharmacist, a behavioral health specialist, care managers who are helping them navigate various points in their care. All of that is incredibly important because we're trying to take the mystery out of navigating the system, and we're trying to make it clear that you need a village to really take care of every one of these patients, and it goes well beyond the physical needs of what you're getting in the office itself. And it manifests itself in lots of different ways. I would say one of the really cool things is what we see within the primary care office, but it actually can extend beyond that. I mentioned that CenterWell has these other businesses, home health and pharmacy. We recently had a patient named Joanne who had a hip injury, and she was being seen actually by all three businesses at once. So she was getting her home delivery meds because she couldn't go to the pharmacy anymore from the pharmacy. She had a CenterWell primary care doctor and a CenterWell home health nurse who was really trying to get her back to achieving her goals, getting her walking again. And I couldn't believe it because she referred to it as CenterWell is taking care of me. That just doesn't happen. You don't see a place where a patient is actually saying, that's one team surrounding me and taking care of me, right? I can tell you in real life, that is an intermittent conversation. Believe it or not, sometimes it's a fax going from one place to another. So the system is so fragmented. And I just want to comment again on the power of the home. I spend a lot of time riding along with our home health nurses because I'm just fascinated by what we can learn about our patients when we see them outside the setting of the clinic. I'll share one example that happened not too long ago. We had a patient who was having frequent infections, and we couldn't really figure out why. In the clinic, the story wasn't clear. One of our nurses went and visited her at home. And the nurse realized, and I was with her, that we realized that the primary caregiver for this patient was her son-in-law. And so she was too embarrassed to take a shower. And so the intervention that we had to prescribe was a shower chair and a technique for her to take a shower where she could preserve her dignity. Such a minor intervention that now we're reducing ER visits, right? And it's just that unlock when you say, wait, there's a whole person here that we didn't see when we were just thinking them as a person in the clinic.
Absolutely. What would it take for it to move from today's fragmented system that over-indexes on medical intervention to one focused on preventative care and well-being, including healthy aging, education, and social and emotional support?
Yeah, I think this is the key question. McKinsey Health Institute actually just published a study showing that interventions that focus on healthy aging have an amazing return on investment. You know, typically $1 invested in healthy aging gets you $3 back, both in the context of reducing medical cost, but also in improving overall economic benefit. So the interventions are varied. It can include transportation, social connectivity, physical activity. In fact, some of those interventions we do, every one of our primary care clinics has a community room. We throw activities. There's dances, there's dominoes, there's all sorts of things going on where we're trying to pull people together. And it's just, you realize how important that can be. So that's one. But I think it raises a couple of other issues. You can have that model, sounds great, but there's a big crisis of primary care in this country. And so I want to speak to that just a little bit. When we looked at our survey on aging, we saw that over half of seniors are not seeing a primary care doctor regularly. And yet, when asked, they said the primary care doctor is the single factor most likely to help me age well, followed closely by their family. So there's this massive disconnect. Even worse, we looked at the population right below that, ages 45 to 64. Only about a quarter of them are seeing their doctor regularly. So a huge unlock that we could get if we could promote longitudinal primary care. And just to reiterate what you said, the social and behavioral part are so important, right? So we've invested in connectivity in our clinics. There's so much more we could be doing. The Surgeon General has told us that isolation can lead to be a risk factor for dementia. So it is just so important for us to continue to think about how we can improve access to those type of activities.
As we close here and look ahead, how should society be thinking about aging? And what unique roles can individuals and communities, as well as organizations, play in creating healthier, more fulfilling experiences for our future generations?
Yeah, well, I think this is going to be very much a team sport, right? We've talked about how the medical establishment can only do a part of this. I would say, first, as a society, we have to pivot our view on aging, right? A session like this is perfect for that. We have to continue to change the view. Second, we have to invest in primary care, change the view that primary care is a transactional thing, like a visit to an urgent care is enough, to being a longitudinal relationship that we can depend on. And then going forward, we've got to just keep thinking about it as being a set of solutions that will address fulfillment more broadly. So excited to be part of the answer.
I believe that. Thank you, Dr. Shetty.
Thank you very much.
Here to discuss unfinished business while your most consequential work may still be ahead. Please welcome co-host of CBS Mornings and editor-at-large at Oprah Daily, Gayle King. Actress and author, Julianne Moore. With Atlantic staff writer, Sophie Gilbert.
Thank you so much for coming. Oh, what? Thank you everyone for coming. I am so thrilled and honored to be here with these extraordinary women who are doing the most ambitious and the most exciting and interesting work of their lives.
And Julianne and I said, we're thrilled to be here with you.
Oh,
so this just works out for all of us.
I wanted to start with a quote from Betty Friedan, which says, "Age is not lost youth, but a new stage of opportunity and strength." So I wanted to ask both of you, but I'll start with you, Julianne. What does aging well mean to you, and why do you think it's something that we're often afraid to talk about?
Well, I would say, first of all, that I think everyone hates to be defined by the age that they are. When you say to a little kid, you're 5 years old, and so you're not ready to do this, they're going to be angry. When you say to a teenager, you need to do this because you're old enough now, they're going to kind of push back. When you say to a 30-year-old, you're supposed to be married by now, and where's your house? They're going to be furious, and and so on and so on. And so when you say to somebody at any stage in their life, well, this is where you are, what are you up to now, or do you think it's time to wrap it up? It's not going to feel good. It's not going to be what your life is about. And I think that one of the things that I've come to understand, and especially since my kids have grown up, is that they're entering into a different developmental stage, and I'm entering into a different developmental stage. And each stage of your life has its own interests and parameters and whatever. But to try not to define yourself too strictly by those parameters, to know that it's not as linear as we think. It's simply just you're simply in part a continuum of aging. So to try to keep yourself away from that idea of things being so strict, I think.
And Gayle, what does aging well mean to you?
I am so happy to be on the planet. Honest to God, I really am. So to me, aging is the price you pay for living. And I just think if we could, I like to think of living your life in full gallop, no matter what that is. And that's really what I try to do. When my mom turned 50, I thought, oh boy, mom's getting old. When I turned 50, I thought, okay, let's go. So the other day I'm at CBS, and you know how CBS, they go, what is your date of birth? I said 12/28/54, and the guy behind the counter goes, wow. He looked at me, and I go, just give me my cholesterol medicine, you young whippersnapper. But I was so happy that I really am to do what we get to do, Julianne, at the age that we get to do it, whatever that may be for you, and to still have the joy of life. That is exactly how I feel. When I turn 50, I don't know how AARP does this, but they send you that magazine. I turned 50, that damn magazine came 2 days later. And I called them up and I said, could you please take me off of your list? Because I didn't want to get the early bird specials and the coupons and the traveler checks and all that they do. And now I regret that I did that, because I think it's good to show people, yep, this is what 50 can look like, this is what 70 can look like, and you can still feel, like Maya Angelou used to say to me, I feel juicy like a peach. That's how I feel. And she was 80-something when she said that.
I hate that phrase of a certain age. It makes me crazy. And people feel that they're being polite when they say it, but I want to say what you're really saying is the age is so horrible you don't even want to mention it.
Yes.
Yeah. And when in fact it's true. It's like we're kind of lucky wherever we are, and we have to acknowledge that, acknowledge kind of the breadth of our lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
They actually sent me my AARP magazine when I turned 30. That was a dark day. I think there's been a mistake. I'm not sure.
You weren't offended, were you, or were you?
I think I was just confused.
Yeah.
I was like, how old am I? Anyway, was there a particular moment, Gayle, when you started redefining your ideas, your narratives about aging?
I think maybe when I turned, when you turn 40, you think that you can live another 40 years easy. Or I felt that. When you turn 50, you start thinking, well, I might not live another 50 years. So that was the first time I actually started thinking about it. And when I was younger, I used to say, listen, if I could just make it to 80, I would be so happy, because hopefully my children will be married and have grandchildren that I could get to meet, and they would know me as a person. So 80 was sort of my, let me just make it to 80. And now that I'm saying all that, I'm thinking, let's go for 90. Let's go for, as long as you're healthy, because I don't want to be the woman in the room where my kids are going, it's your turn to take mom to the bathroom. It's your turn. As long as I can be self-sufficient and on my own and be healthy, I want to live as long as I can.
Yeah. What about you, Julianne? Did you have a moment where you sort of confronted your ideas and realized that they were all wrong? Or?
Well, one of the things that's interesting about being an actor is that the minute you turn 28, people start talking to you about the parts are going to dry up. Yeah. Like, how do you, at 28, they're like, I did an Oil of Olay commercial when I was 28 years old that was all about, keeping wrinkles at bay. I was 28. Like, I'd never seen a wrinkle. I happily took the job, right? But people are always asking you to talk about, what are you going to do when this is over? Or aren't you worried about this being finished? Or, and I think just because something is in the culture, something that is in a narrative that we profess to each other, that doesn't mean it's true. So you constantly have to remind yourself, oh, this is somebody else's narrative that they're imposing on me. And often it's an economic one in the case of like selling fear with women. And this idea that somehow if we're only viable as reproductive partners, then our beauty really matters. And so this idea that we have to preserve that as long as possible, that's not a narrative that we have to ascribe to. And I think things have really changed in our lifetime. But I do feel like, in a sense, it was lucky that people were always challenging me about this idea of like, oh, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because it made me pay attention to it and say like, well, this is wrong. This is the wrong way to talk about our lifespan.
So you think that things have changed, that we're not having 28-year-olds do anti-aging? Like, I was thinking at the Golden Globes earlier this year, there were so many women in their 50s, 60s, 70s being lauded for these incredible performances. And it felt like I didn't remember it being like that in the past. It feels like there's more willingness to tell stories about women in different stages of life than there's been in the past.
Those were my homies. I was really pulling for Kathy Bates for Matlock.
Yeah.
But the competition was so good, and you walked away feeling that everybody got, I thought, validation that night.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because they do talk about in Hollywood and even in TV news. The men would get older and they were looking distinguished. They could get bald, and nothing against bald. They could get a paunch. Little jelly belly, they could get jowls, and that was called distinguished. If a woman started looking older, then she just looked old and it was time to go. I do think in some levels that has changed, but you don't see a lot of women who make their careers as long as the men do.
But I do think it's really important what you were saying too, that a lot of the changes come along with economic parity. So as more women entered the workforce and acquired more agency and autonomy, we started seeing more women, you know. So that was a reality. If you do not have, you know, a room of one's own, as Virginia Woolf said, if you don't have that, if you don't have your own life and you don't have economic agency, it's very, very difficult to be present in the culture. Yeah. And as more women have achieved that, it's changed a lot for all of us. I mean, I grew up with a mother who didn't graduate from high school until I was in the 8th grade, and then she got 2 master's degrees subsequent to that. And so for her, having gotten married, you know, at 19, having a baby at 20, her choices were limited. And I was educated in a way to avoid that, you know, and I had different opportunities. And having those opportunities certainly makes me much more visible in the culture, as many other women are.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to what you were saying, Gayle, about signs of maturity, which we tend to really respect in men. You know, gray hair means wisdom and prestige, and we still find older men attractive, but we tend to...
I still think it's okay to color your hair, ladies.
Yeah.
Nora Ephron said one of the best things for women is hair dye. I think that's very true.
Right. But Susan Sontag had a quote which I always think about, which is that there's only one standard of female beauty that's sanctioned, and that's the girl.
That's the who?
The girl.
The girl.
It's sort of this idea that women have to reject signs of aging rather than embrace them as signs of wisdom and maturity. And, I mean, do you think that's true? And if it is, what do we do to fight it?
I think that was what I was trying to address just before. You know, Gloria Steinem was the one that said, as long as we're only valued for our reproductive ability, we will be trapped by beauty and youth.
Yeah.
So finding more, you know, establishing parity, gender equality is like really the most important thing, because that's the cultural narrative that's holding us back. Saying, so Susan Sontag grew up at a time when that was the one standard for women, was being a girl forever. That was where your value was, because there was fewer opportunities. But I do really think that that's really what equality is about at the end of the day. It will free us from the need to ascribe to those beauty standards. Not that we can't enjoy them too, as Gayle was saying. I think as long as we feel like the things we're doing by choice, and not out of some kind of necessity.
Yeah. That is, I think that's a really key point. As long as you feel you're doing it by choice, and that no one is making you do it, or you feel you have to do it to keep the job or advance. I totally agree with that. You know, Nina, there's a famous female attorney in LA who says, you want to be a woman in power, then empower other women. Right. And that's the point she makes about get women in the room, a seat at the table, and then you bring others up with you. I also think that that's very important.
Yeah. Julianne, in terms of your physical, emotional, spiritual well-being, what are the habits that you've picked up maybe, or that have best served you recently?
Well, back to being an actor. I hate to keep going back there, but it's been such a great job for me. It's been such a wonderful pursuit. It's something I always enjoyed. I like the whole, the imaginative aspect of it. But because it sort of involves my body, I've really had to take care of it. I've had to think about, you know, my physicality. I do a lot of yoga. I have to keep up with cardio. I have to make sure that I have a lot of endurance. I have to be able to memorize copious amounts of text. Actually, it's interesting because...
you do very well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But you know, I just partnered with Lily on this program, this Brain Health Matters, this thing about encouraging people to talk to their doctors about cognitive health. Now, after I did Still Alice, so many people asked me about Alzheimer's. It was sort of surprising. They'd be like, well, you know, I want to know, what should I do about this? What should I do about that? And I was like, I can tell you what I learned in my research, you know. So when Lily approached me about this partnership, I was sort of like, well, I may as well. People ask me about this all the time anyway. But it's been fascinating because there's so much fear around cognitive health, and even talking to a doctor about getting an assessment. And I do think that it's something that needs to be normalized, the same way that we go in and ask about our heart health and our cardiovascular abilities and all of those things, and our bone density and mammograms. It's like, why aren't we normalizing that too? When that's when the brain kind of controls everything in your body. So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot too.
So what have you learned? What are the things that we should do?
Well, brain health is completely tied to physical health. Wow. Honestly, there is a relationship between the health of your heart and your brain because it is about blood flow. I think, eating well, minimizing alcohol, not smoking, all of the things that people advise you to do for your health in general are things that apply to your brain health. Socializing, learning new things, learning a language. There's all this stuff lately in the paper too. Like, I love puzzles. Every time I read an article, somebody's like, do a puzzle, and somebody's like, don't do a puzzle, it doesn't matter. But whatever you do, I think, to engage yourself. And this goes back to this idea of healthy aging too. It's like, we know, I think Gayle and I know, that our involvement in our lives, in our communities, with our jobs, with our friends, all of those things make us feel better as individuals, as people. Yeah. And all of that feeds you.
Yeah. So the other thing, you're talking about living a longer life. It doesn't matter if you're living a longer life and you're healthy and all that good stuff if you don't have joy. Yeah. Carrie Byrne, I hadn't really thought about this. We talk about lifespan, health span, but we just had somebody on CBS Mornings. It's your favorite morning show. Yeah, I said it. Her name is Dr. Carrie Byrne, and she's written a book called Joy Span. Mm-hmm. And she says, we put a lot of emphasis on health and length, but you don't really concentrate on joy. Yeah. And I hadn't thought about it that way. And I try to live my life like that anyway. I still keep waiting, guys, for this grown-up feeling to kick in. I'm very well aware of my age. I know I'm a grown-ass woman, all that good stuff. I get that, but I'm there at the Taylor Swift concert. I'm going to Puerto Rico tomorrow to see Bad Bunny. I'm trying to learn Spanish in 24 hours. Trying to learn it in 24 hours.
You can do it.
But I think joy in your life is also very, very important. And I don't think that we spend a lot of time doing that. And lately, I've just started thinking more about how important that is. Yeah. You go to work, you raise your children. We had these two grandmothers on yesterday, also CBS Mornings, your favorite morning show. They're 80. They're 84 now. They became best friends when they were in their 60s. And they were saying most people think that once their husband dies, they're both widows, that your life is over. Yeah. And what most women, instead of thinking about, I need to find another guy, should think about, what can I do for joy? Find a great friend. And that's something that women do very well. Although, listen, I think finding a great man is good too. Still available and looking. I prefer them younger. But nobody that I could give birth to. But somebody that... I used to say I wanted it to start with a 4. Now I have to move it up, Julianne, to the 5s. But they were saying that they've traveled all around the world, and they're so happy with their lives. So I don't think that we can underestimate and discount how important joy is in your life and happiness, don't you think?
That's right. And also being central in your own life. Yes. We talked about this a little bit about point of view. I talk about point of view and storytelling. If there are a bunch of women in a story, I remember somebody saying to me once that they wrote a movie about their mom. And so I read the script. It was a really lovely script. And I was like, no, you didn't write a movie about your mom. You wrote a movie about yourself and your relationship to your mom, which is fine. But if you're really going to write a movie about your mom, is your mom the central character? Do we have her point of view? Right? Do we have that woman's point of view? And so you realize we are the hero of our stories at every single point in our lives. And that's what's been so exciting about this entertainment with older women in it, is that you're seeing these stories from these characters' point of view. And that's what feels different. They're not relegated to the sidelines. They are the central characters, and that's exciting.
I like when you said, I read it and I thought it was a really lovely script. That sounds like it was okay. That's the word I use when I can't think of something. When I go,
it was really lovely.
Yeah, it was really lovely. I'm going to start thinking, okay, it was really lovely. Yeah, because it's a compliment. It's a compliment.
Right. No, I love that. And the fact that there are so many more women behind the scenes as well who are willing to hear those stories and showcase them feels so important. Gayle, has there been anything about age that has made you feel liberated or powerful?
It has made, I think, the wisdom that comes with it. Yeah. Certainly the confidence that comes with it. People always say to me, what do you like terms about, I consider preparation my superpower.
Yeah,
I do. I consider preparation my superpower in terms of when you're doing an interview, whether you read the book or you watch the movie or you look at old things that they've done. The thing about aging is that you'll listen to people's stories who are younger and you just go, oh, girl, you don't even know what you're saying right now. And you can see with the beauty of getting older, and not to sound like the old cranky lady in the room, but you understand what really matters in life. And I think that only comes with living a life.
Yeah, in a
and
sense,
going
like,
through stuff.
age is preparation for everything, right? Because you've accrued all this experience and hopefully this knowledge and a social network and all of these things that you realize at a certain point you've been fortified by your experience, which is wonderful. I mean, and you don't notice it until like suddenly you're in a situation like that and you're like, wow, I know this.
No, I will be sitting in a group with people and I'll just say, I'm just going to sit here and listen and not say it. We're just going to listen. And then somebody will say something that just sounds so batshit crazy to me that I just have to say, I know you weren't talking to me, but da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm very good at giving unsolicited advice. Because when I was a little kid, I lived in Turkey as a kid from 1st grade to 6th grade, and I got a note home from school that said, Dear Mr. and Mrs. King, Gayle is a very good student, but she tends to talk a lot in class and is disruptive. I brought it to her attention, and now I'm bringing it to yours. And I was raised in a house where you get a note home from the teacher. Nobody backtalks the teacher. Nobody disrespects the teacher. So it's ironic to me that I'm doing this. But I envision my life as a child psychologist because I do love listening to people's problems. I really do. Giving unsolicited advice, or being a lawyer where you're arguing your case, because I was never going to represent the bad guy, that I'd be arguing my case. I thought that was going to be my calling. And here, that's why, God has other plans for you that you don't know.
Yeah. I just remember when I turned 40, there was something so wonderful about caring less.
Yes.
Just caring less about what people think, not internalizing it, not...
That's about when it hits where you don't... You know what? Because especially now, the internet is such a accelerator on hate.
Yeah.
With people get what I call keyboard courage to say stuff to you that they would never say to your face.
Right. Yeah.
And you can get 100 good compliments and you get that one cranky Yankee, and that's the one I focus on. I stopped doing that at 40.
Yeah.
And then you realize you cannot please everybody. So as long as you please I call them my kitchen cabinet, which is favorite daughter Kirby, favorite son Will, and Oprah. That's my kitchen cabinet. And so when you have your own kitchen cabinet, their opinions matter to me. Everybody else, I want to do a good job. I hope people like what I do, but I'm not obsessing about that. Do you? You have your own kitchen cabinet too.
I do. And I do think, you know what I think about the internet? I remember in junior high, there were these things called slam books. Do you remember those? They would, they still exist, and they're confiscated in middle schools all over America all the time. But people would get a notebook and they'd pass it around, and people would write anonymous comments about each other. And they were so painful. They were so painful. They were so damaging. And of course, the principal would find out, and someone would say, "Whose is this?" And they'd throw it away and all that. And that's what the internet is. That's what it feels like. It's like, and so that I think that existing for all of us is incredibly dangerous, as well as all of those images that are not realistic images. Well, even when some of my friends will say, "Oh, you look so good in that," or I'm like, I didn't do my hair, I didn't do my makeup, and that photograph was retouched, and that's not reality. You just say thanks. I'll take it. I'll take it.
No, I just say it takes a village, because I know what you mean. Yes,
but I know what you mean. I think that idea of being physically involved in your life, of having real people that you interact with, of showing up, of being in the world, all of those things, that's something that you realize from experience too. Those are the things that feed you, those are the things that propel you forward, those are the relationships that are the most meaningful and are the most accurate to who you are.
Yeah. Julianne, is there anything that you wish more people, but women especially, knew about getting older? Is there anything that you wish that you had known?
Don't accept other people's narratives of the way that it's supposed to go, or don't feel that there's something that you have to achieve at a certain time that you're late to, or that you got early to, or that the change is not possible, or that you are not you're not central to your own story. This idea that somebody else is determining something for you, that I wish people people didn't carry with them, you know? And also that sense of responsibility. I think knowing that you are responsible for your happiness, for your choices, that the choices that you make in terms of what kind of education you want to pursue, what kind of job, what kind of community, where you want to live, who you want to be with, pursuing friendships that matter to you. This idea that you can that you drive your own train, that you don't let that narrative be imposed on you. And if you have that feeling, then I feel like at every stage in your life, you're able to make the choices that will make your life more meaningful.
Yeah. What about you, Gayle?
Don't allow toxicity in your life.
Oh, I love that.
Distance yourself from people, even if it's a friend who you can tell does not mean you well.
Yeah.
I don't want negativity. I really don't. I don't want negativity. I don't think it's hard to be nice to people.
Yeah.
I don't. We live in, as I said, society, you're encouraged to be your worst possible self. I don't want people around me who don't wish me well or who are secretly trying to take me down. And everybody knows who that is in your life. Also, I don't accept someone else's opinion of yourself. Yeah. You decide that. Yeah. To piggyback on what she said, you can decide what that is. And so many times, women in particular, guys don't seem to have this, by the way. They're not sitting there thinking, you know, Bob said something about me, Joseph said something about me, and it's just really taking me down. Bart said something about me, and it's just really throwing. Guys don't have that.
Yeah.
Guys walk in a room, even when they know that they don't belong or they're not qualified, they're like, you're glad I'm here. You should be glad I'm here. And I wish more women felt that way too, and don't get so hung up about what others are saying and thinking about them. Even guys that don't look so great are thinking, I look pretty damn good.
All right, I'm going to try and manifest this energy for the rest of the day. Square my shoulders. Have either of you had any creative opportunities or professional opportunities recently that you couldn't have had when you were younger that have been really important to you? Gayle?
Oh, good question. That couldn't have been available to me when I was younger.
I mean, you went to space.
I did go to space, yes. And I was terrified.
You were?
I was terrified and very, very afraid. I'd said to myself, I'm going to open myself up to new adventures, but I was referring to dating. I wasn't afraid of that. But I'm afraid of heights. I'm a very nervous flyer. I don't get on a roller coaster. And I think that I'm sure my age was attractive because when Jeff and Lauren asked me, I'm sure they asked me for many different reasons. They were trying to get a diverse crew, and there was something about being part of the first all-female one. But to be honest, if Lauren Sanchez hadn't been on that rocket, my ass wouldn't have been on there either. I knew that listen, you know, something happening to Blue Origin is bad for business. So I know they dotted every I and crossed every T. But I know because she was on that flight, I think they triple checked. But I felt after I met the people that were working on it, I felt really safe. I felt really in good hands. But in the back of your mind, you always know you always know that, but it wasn't front and center. So I just decided I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to go with it, and I think I'll be okay. But yeah, that was something I would not have done when I was younger. But I would not have done it when I was younger. But I felt I wasn't ready to go.
Yeah.
But if it had happened, okay. But I would not have done that when I was younger. If my kids were little and I was still raising, I would not have done it.
Yeah. So it took courage, fortitude,
it did.
Power.
It did. It took a lot of courage. I was so proud of myself. Yes. And when I was coming back down, I got really lightheaded.
Ooh, I bet.
I know, Julianne, that was so scary. I got really lightheaded, and I felt I was going to pass out, and all I could think of was, dear sweet black baby Jesus, I'm begging you, please don't let me pass out in this capsule so that everybody comes out, yay, and they're pulling me out on a stretcher. Yeah. And that's the visual. I willed that away. And then it came out of it. But it was really, I did. That's probably the bravest thing I've ever done. The bravest thing I've ever done.
What about you, Julianne? Is there anything?
Mine's so boring. I mean,
that is not true.
You went in a rocket ship.
True.
I was actually just thinking, just the other day, I cold emailed somebody who I had met. I happened to have her email.
Are they famous?
And they're famous.
What is their name?
And I'm not gonna say.
Okay.
But
give us initials.
But it was about a project. It was about a piece of writing, and I thought, I think I have her email. And I went like, and she answered like within minutes. It was absolutely, I was blown away. I was astonished.
Do we want to know who it is? Just the initials.
But it was great because I think when I was younger, I thought, I couldn't do something like that. I wouldn't have done that.
Newsflash, you are Julianne bleeping Moore. Let's just say that. You are not chopped liver. She probably looked at that and said, oh my God, I can't believe Julianne bleeping Moore is emailing me.
But that was the, thank you,
yes.
you guys.
Yes.
But that was due to experience and time
I get it.
and age.
I get it. Yes.
And that 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I wouldn't have even thought that was possible. I wouldn't have had her email. I actually knew where the email was. So I was like, wow, this is where I am in my life. I'm at a place where I can reach out to somebody that I don't know and say, hey, I have this idea, and can we talk about it? And that was really wonderful. I realized I was sort of flying after that happened. I'm like, that's different. That's really a result of experience. And
so
time.
is there going to be a project we can be looking out for? So then we'll know.
I'll let everybody know.
But I do think that there is something about that. Most people think all famous people know each other.
Right.
And that just is not true. Mm-hmm. You'll go to a room and you'll say, oh my God, there's fill in the blank. Can I go over and say hi to them?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Or yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, last question, I think. Julianne, is there anything that you are dying to do? Do you want to go to space?
I don't want to go to space. Don't want to go to space. Don't send me. Don't send me. I'm a
Julianne, never
coward.
say never.
I know.
I'm a coward too. Never say never.
You were so brave. What do I want to do? I want to do a film in another language.
Oh.
That I want to do.
Which language? Which language?
Anything. I speak nothing. Yeah. I speak a tiny bit of German. I can sometimes get by in Spanish. I'd like to learn French. But sometimes I think, what would that be like, just in terms of what that does with communication? Because there's character in language, right? There's personality in the way people express themselves, in the words themselves, in the syntax. And I'm kind of curious about what that experience would be like, even for my brain. Yes. Because it just makes you have. So that's something that I'd really like to try.
Yes, I speak Pig Latin.
Okay, good for you. Good for
Do you guys remember that as a kid?
Yeah.
Julianne J. Aoge. Yeah. I'm trying to learn Spanish in 24 hours. Did I mention that?
I love it.
I know.
That's the thing that you're dying to do, learn Spanish in 24 hours?
I'd like to be able to say something other than gracias and hola. I don't know. I have to think about it. I really do. I can't stress enough how much I just love life and doing what we get to do.
Yeah.
All the rest is just gravy to me, all of it.
That is an amazing note to end on. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Gayle.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye.